My name is Eric Dorabella. I am the community manager here at Obsidian. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm seated here with Nathan Davis, the game director for Pathfinder Adventures.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Today, we're going to be going through the tutorial because Pathfinder Adventures is now out on iOS phones and Android devices. And we get a lot of questions about how to play the game. So we're going to be going through the tutorial as Nathan guides us through, giving us advice going through the game. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to ask away in chat, and we'll answer the best we can.
Thank you very much. All right.
All right.
So shall we get started?
So let's get started.
All right. All right. I will not read all the tutorial boxes, but I'll give you the general gist. All right. Now we're just kind of explaining what the basics are of the game. We're playing these two special characters that are for the tutorial only. We have had some questions about whether these guys could be playable later. There is currently no plan to do so because they were designed deliberately to be a bit OP. Though I do love Auric and his wry sense of humor. And I've just been actually doing a bunch of work on the tutorial in the last couple days, so I will try to not skip past this very quickly as I've been doing through my playtesting, because it is easy to do.
Will there be plans to have Auric and Amico as playable characters?
Not currently, and not going to rule it out, but there is a way that we could potentially do it, but it's not something that is in the list right now. There's a lot of characters to make that Paizo has done for the various adventure paths. Those would be our priority, getting characters like Elaine and Balazar and all the other greats. So old Auric and Amico will probably get short shrift in that regard. So we got the Sandpoint Devil. That's our villain. Like, the main thing about this game is that almost every scenario is corner and defeat the villain. So we always need to know kind of who the villain is, or it's helpful to know what the villain is. And in this case, it is the Sandpoint Devil. Defeating henchmen helps you close locations. So this is they have these henchmen that can potentially hurt you, but all in all, fighting henchmen tends to be a good thing because that helps you kind of block them off and gives you an opportunity to stop villains in their tracks. So these are the cultists of the Sandpoint Devil. So what we're kind of describing here is that each of these locations is a deck of cards. Up there at the top left, you'll see all the different kinds of cards that are in each location. So in this example, obviously we have monsters, and if you look up there, there's 3 monsters, there's 3 items, 1 ally and 1 barrier, and 1 weapon. So we actually have a kind of unknown card. So that's something we don't really describe so well, is that we have an unknown card that is usually either a henchman or the villain, and you just don't know what it is until you get to it. So here are the monsters. Normally you don't see which monsters are going into the deck. And here are the items. Again, normally you don't see which items specifically are going into the deck, but in this case you do.
So those are cards you can encounter as you're playing through the tutorial.
Absolutely. And then we shuffle up the henchman and the villain, and they'll be in one of those decks. It's not clear which one. And then let's get into some hardcore RPG business. So we have Amico and Auric. So we have, if we tap Auric, we can take a look at his skills. He's a mercenary fighter guy, so obviously strength and constitution are big deals for him, as is melee and fortitude. So there are these different kind of sub-skills that are additions to your kind of primary skills. So if you are rolling a fortitude check, for example, you'll be rolling your constitution D10 plus 2. And let's take a look at Amico. So she has a setup where most everything is on her charisma. She's like an arcane and diplomacy and divine check based off of that as well. But the real thing is getting into the powers. She has a hand size of 6. She also has a couple of music powers. And so, for instance, we have Bardic Performance. This is something that in the main game that Lem has, the ability to recharge a card to add a D4 to a check by another character at location. If you're just getting the tutorial, that's not going to mean too much to you just now. But the idea is that she can help other players at her location. She also has one that you could use in this tutorial, but is not forced upon you. Call in a favor. This one's actually very powerful. She can bury an ally, which is a kind of card, again. So if she has an ally card, she can bury it, which means it's out of play for the rest of the game, but it adds an additional D10 plus 1 to a check. So that can really help when it's really important. So let me jump over to Auric. He also has powers himself. He has a smaller hand size. Hand size is important because hand size makes you reduces the risk of taking damage, but also means you have fewer options to play with as you're getting into the game. That's just the number of cards you have in your hand, obviously. And he actually has a number of proficiencies: light armor, heavy armor, and weapons. All of those things kind of allow you to unlock different powers that different cards have. So in this case, we have a couple of additional powers. Shield Bash, so if something has the offhand trait, he can recharge it. So he can take a shield, recharge it, and add an additional D6 to a check. Mainly he can use his armor as weapons, so that's cool. It's very cool. And he also has Armor Mastery. This is something that one of the core characters, Valeros, has that allows you to recharge weapons instead of discarding.
So what does recharging mean?
Yeah, so I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. We'll talk about what the different kind of ways to play cards is. I kind of mentioned burying. I've talked about discarding and recharging. Essentially, the short version is that recharge allows you to preserve cards that you otherwise wouldn't necessarily get back very easily. All right, so jumping back to Amiko. It's really easy just to get really deep into kind of hardcore RPG bits of these characters. So there's kind of a lot there, but we try to help you along the way as you're playing. We're going to force you to start off at the farmhouse this time, but normally you'll have a chance to choose which location your characters are going to start at. So in this case, we'll both start at the farmhouse. And also normally you would be choosing the order in which your characters will be played, as you're playing multiple characters. In this case, we'll just go with Amiko first. All right. This is one of the kind of tricky things that we try to introduce early in the game is that there's this concept of phases. So there's 5 phases. There's the give card phase, where you can give another character one of your cards from your hand. You can move to another location, which we'll go into later. You can draw a card from the location deck that you're at. That's called exploring. That's one of the main things that you're doing in the game. And of course, you can end your turn and reset your hand. The tutorial isn't going into this too much because there's kind of a special thing you can do with reset that we can kind of talk about towards the end. But all in all, if you hit end turn, most of the time it'll just automatically reset your hand for you. So go through that. We'll go into exploring. There are a couple ways to actually to activate this. You can just tap it with your finger, but my preference is to slide and bring it out. So different people like to do it different ways. So we run into the Boots of Elvenkind. This is a boon. So this is essentially like I was at the farmhouse and I found these cool boots. And in this case, if I really want to get those boots, I have this aid spell that I can use. So to use aid, I can discard it, and then there's a chance of getting it back. So there's a chance to recharge it. So I can either drag it over to discard it, or I can just tap the discard button. Again, a lot of people like to do this in different ways. All right, and then in this case, I get the option to recharge, so I can roll that check, and I get it.
Nice.
All right, and then that's the end of my turn. I can't explore anymore. I can't do anything else, so I just hit the big red forward. And so we're going to go through the different ways of playing cards. The most free way to play something is to reveal. You just drag it up into that tray. Display works similarly. It just stays up there until a certain amount of time that's told to you by the card. And then recharge. This goes puts cards at the bottom of your deck that you're going to be drawing from at the end of each turn. And discard. So that's where cards go that you've played for discard powers and such. There are things that actually bring those back, like healing powers and such. And then bury. This is something that takes a card out of play for the rest of the game. You'll get it back in the next scenario. Very rarely can something ever bring anything back out of bury. And then banish. This is something where you take the card and you no longer have it in your character's set. However, you could potentially get it back through gameplay. All right, so we're going to do some more exploring.
So a banished card would not go back to the vault, so you would have to explore and get that card if you wanted to get it again.
The banished card would go to the vault. It wouldn't go to your character's collection of things. So your character's cards are a combination of what's in their hand, what's in your deck, and what's in your discard, and actually also what's in your bury. So that's all the cards that are owned by the character. When you banish it, it's no longer owned by the character. It's now part of the universe. It's part of something that you can run into again. All right, so we got the soldier. He has a melee check to acquire. Soldier here, one thing that kind of confuses people sometimes is that they run into somebody that looks like a guy, like a soldier, and they think they have to attack him. That's actually like an ally. That's somebody that you can get on your side, and they can help you in the fights to come. And so again, yeah, we can look at, our character has a melee skill of D10 plus 3, and then that's reflected here with a D10 and a plus 3. We roll to acquire, and we get the soldier into my hand. One of the things that's helpful for people that are kind of starting off is every time you see this trash can and you have a playable card, usually it's a good idea to play the card, even if it's a discard. Because what will happen is that at the end of your turn, you're going to have to discard down to your hand size. Like I said, Auric has a hand size of 4. If he discards the soldier to explore, he can use that thing and he's still at his hand size. So in this case, we run into the Codex. Here's a place where an important part of the game is other characters helping characters' checks on things. So we'll jump over to Amiko. She's actually got a couple of things she can do to help out in the check. Number one, she's got the Samson. She can recharge this card to add 1d4 to any check by a character at her location. Could be her, could be him. So we could just drag that over for recharge. Oop. It's weird with a mouse sometimes. And she also has her Bardic Performance ability. So that's this power that's glowing in the bottom right. And we tap that, we can recharge any card from our hand to add an additional d4. So in this case, if we don't need this leather right now. And then actually you can just roll the dice from either her, you can roll the dice from now, you can switch back to him and roll either way.
Okay.
And so then he acquires it. The cool thing is that he has it now, so but he's going to have to discard a card because he's over his hand size. So even if he discarded that card, one thing that's nice is that now that's part of the collection of that both characters have. That at the end of the game they can exchange things and whatever. So a lot of times it's a good idea to acquire stuff that's not necessarily good for the character acquiring it, because he's like, I don't need this codex. Maybe that's more of a you thing, Amiko. You know what? When we get through all this adventure, we'll collect our goods and then we'll spread it out between us. So that's something that can help out later.
So this prompt comes up, so optional discard.
Yeah.
Would there be a reason that I would want to discard more cards before the end of my phase?
Yeah, sure. One reason is you can look at your cards and go, you know what? I've got I've got half plate. That's an armor. I've got Orc shield. That's an armor. You know what? I'm armored up. I'm feeling good. Right now, I need to have more options in my hand. And then you could just drag the discard. That'll free you up, so you can have. You know, in this case, he added another weapon to his hand, which can be helpful. And you know, a lot of times, you know, when you're getting to the end of a scenario, when you're going to get like everybody wants to help out on all the checks, you can just throw a bunch of the stuff out of somebody's hand to hopefully get some blessings or some cards that help on other checks. So yeah, there are certainly reasons to do that. And so we're back to Amiko. She explores. This is kind of the first instance of taking damage in the tutorial. So she's got this handy dandy Amulet of Life that will prevent 3 damage. By the way, so damage will force you to discard a card from your hand if you don't absorb it in some way. This is bad because what you're trying to do is get through the game but maintain enough cards so that you never run out of cards in your deck. So in this case, she has this Amulet of Life that she can discard to take it. Even though it's 1 damage, it's actually useful to do this because she has a chance to recharge it. So she may not succeed here, but at least there's a chance that this actually gets back into her deck. So instead of taking 1 damage and having something in her discard, her deck is still pretty sound with having that thing in there. All right, so now it's time to fight. She's got a couple of cards that she can play to combat. One thing that I certainly advise not to do is, unless you have to, like, don't just roll the die at this point, because you know, she has a D6 plus 2. The most she could get is an 8 in this case. The combat is 9. So if she either uses the heavy crossbow, that is something that adds her ranged skill plus D10, or the more powerful in this case is the acid arrow. A lot of people early on are a little bit like hesitant to discard this card because it's like, maybe I won't get it back. You know, you probably will, but in this case, this will, you know, have a better chance of actually killing the goblin. All right, so I have a chance to recharge. And even if I don't, it's better than taking a whole bunch of damage from the goblin as well. So a lot of times, even if you're going to lose the thing for the next few turns or to the end of the scenario, a lot of times it's good just to do that to make sure that you're not losing more from taking more damage.
So it's always good to play the odds, or do you want to overshoot and make sure you always succeed?
That's a very good question. So in this case, it's aptly timed. So we're running into the Sandpoint Devil. When you're fighting villains or you're fighting henchmen, or one thing we'll get into later is closing locations, those things are things that are most of the times are must hits. So you want to throw as many resources as you can at it. And there are a lot of things like certain boons that, you know, you don't need so much, even if you'd really like it. A lot of times it makes sense just to like preserve the cards that you have to deal with the kind of more important things that are coming. So in this case, we're going to run into Sandpoint Devil. Generally, like I like to overshoot things, try to like assume that I'm going to roll badly when I have to do an important roll. But yeah, we'll get into that in a minute. So this is kind of a visualization of what happens when you're fighting a villain. So this is, you know, it's all about trying to prevent the villain from escaping. And in this case, the Sandpoint Devil, because we're both at the farmhouse, could escape to either of these 2 locations. And if he'll use blessings to cover his tracks. So you're not going to be sure which location he's going to go into. So if you fought him, when we fight him, he'll go out here, get mixed in with a blessing, and then he'll be in one of these locations. So one of the things that you're going to want to do is corner the villain for good, which is, you know, if both of these locations were closed, and we'll get into closing in a minute, and you had characters stationed at then if you fought the Sandpoint Devil and won, then you would win the scenario. So the main thing is that you want to have locations closed so that he doesn't get to them. If they're not all permanently closed, then you want to temporarily close them, and you can do that by having characters at different locations. But we'll kind of get into that in a minute. Yeah, this is kind of what I was talking about. Particularly during the tutorial, you want to just play cards when you have them. So in this case, I've got the battle axe, which I can discard to use, and the flaming mace, which I reveal to use. So I will discard the card, and in this case, I actually have that power that allows me to recharge shields. So actually, I'll go ahead and use that. And now I've got a really big check. And guess what? Emiko has something I can use too. This is going to be...
So you're just going straight for overkill right now.
Yeah. Right now, I'm looking at it, I got, 6 dice plus 6. I could roll a 12 or 50. So, and because he recharges discarded weapons, there wasn't really much cost to that. And then this villain in particular is forcing a recharge, so I will recharge this mace. And now he's going to flee, so Blessing comes from the vault, gets mixed up with him, goes to one of those 2 locations. This location closes down, so all the remaining cards go away. So that includes boons and banes, but usually that's a good thing. I have fewer cards than my hand size, so I will draw up. And now it's Miko's turn, and it's time to move because there's nothing else to do here. So locations are very important in this game. Location closures are important because that's a check you're going to have to do pretty regularly. Also, what's happening at this location can affect the way everything's working out. So, in this case, there's a Constitution Fortitude check to close. That's more of an Auric thing, or an Acrobatics check to close the Warren. So that's more of an Emiko thing. So she's going to head that direction. So you just tap that to look at it, and then you tap again to move. And so I will go to this location. As you can see, I've got 2 monsters, 1 barrier, 2 weapons, 1 blessing, 1 item, 2 allies, and then 2 mystery cards, because I've got either a blessing or the villain and a henchman. In this case, we run into the Bugbear. Every time you run into a monster at this location, then it spawns another monster somewhere. And time to fight him. So I've got a power I can use. I can use my Burying Ally, so I don't have too much use for this crow. So I'm going to add a D10, and I'll reveal my heavy crossbow. And I really want to get this guy because I don't want, if I mess up, he's going to get shuffled back into the deck, and that's going to make life even harder. So I will roll that. And I was able to succeed at rolling a 15. I could continue exploring if I wanted to. I've got a Blessing of the Gods here, but I will let this ride. All right, so now it's Auric's turn. This is about the place where we talk about the Blessing deck. So the Blessing deck is a kind of crucial piece of the puzzle in this game. So you're trying to corner and defeat the villain in a certain amount of time. So that time is determined by how many cards are left in the Blessing deck. So it's just a stack of blessings that that are discarded at the beginning of every turn.
So does a turn consist of as every character goes, or it's all characters go and then that's when the turn ends?
So each character takes up a turn. So one kind of crucial thing to know is that with 2 characters, you have 30 blessings in the deck. So you have essentially 15 turns each to win. With 4 characters, you still have 30 cards in the deck. So you have fewer cards per character. Same thing with 6, it's still 30 turns. There's a kind of, the way that the difficulty kind of slides on that, it tends to be you're more worried about your life and killing your character if you have fewer characters in your party, and if you have more characters, you're really more worried about that clock. So you tend to be aggressively exploring locations, discarding as frequently as you can. So in this case, we run into a pit trap. I just so happen to have the Masterwork tools that I can recharge to actually just automatically get past this. The pit trap's good to win because you can explore, continue on. And now we've run into a henchman, so we can get into that. If I defeat him, I can close the location. That makes it harder for the villain to move around. All right, so I've got the soldier. I can recharge to add another D4. I've got a blessing. Blessings are a really helpful, like all-around thing where they can add a die to a check. You can discard the card to explore your location. In this case, I would just be adding a die to the check. One thing I got to know is that once I defeat him, I have a chance to close the location. I may want to hold on to that blessing to do that because it's a very important check to hit. So Emiko has a couple of blessings, so maybe she will help out with hers, and Auric will keep his. The key thing about that is you can see that each character can play one card per check, one card per type per check. So she's got 2 blessings. She can only play one of them. She can't play 2. If she had another kind of card, like a spell that could help in the situation, she could play that as well, but she's limited by the 2.
So I noticed you're going back and forth through the discard pile and going back into your hand. So you're essentially undoing things. At what point in the game can you not undo an action?
When you've rolled the die. So we have a few different ways that we confirm actions. The main one is by rolling dice. And another one is whenever you explore, you can't undo an explore. Or if you examine, that's another action. When you move, you tend to not be able to undo that. Those are when things kind of permanently lock down. When you're trying to figure out like which dice you're going to use and what's the best combination of things, we allow you to kind of back out of it. All right, so I rolled really good on my Fortitude check. So I close the location. That means that all of the cards in that location go away. It checked to see if the villain was there. He clearly wasn't there. So that's cool. Everything's cleared out in deeper dungeons. And Auric has a weapon again, so that's good. So I'll talk a little bit about how healing works. So if you have cards in your discard pile, and you want to put them back into your deck, which is good because that's your life, you can use something like a cure spell. In this case, you shuffle a certain amount of cards from your discard pile into your deck. So I did that. I got enough, and now I have a chance to recharge. And because her divine check is based on dexterity, I can also use that on the recharge check. So certain cards you're going to want to like really make sure you get back. So for her, like having cure around is going to be something very helpful. And so here we go. So in this case, she finds a Night Watchman. Probably a different one than she buried. And she could use this guy to continue exploring, but in this case, I'll hold on to mine.
So you're playing it safe because you want better cards when you encounter
Exactly.
the villain.
Totally. Yeah. So if you have like one card in your hand and you think you might encounter the villain or a henchman, then you may want to hold off and go for another turn, especially when you have a lot of turns left. All right.
Just quickly, as Nathan is running through the game, we are going to hold a Q&A session after the tutorial. And so if you have any questions that haven't been answered by our social media manager, Mikey Dowling, who is in the chat with you guys, just hold on those questions, and when we get to the Q&A portion, we'll go ahead and answer those for you.
All right. I want to charge forward with Auric. He's got his longsword, looking for danger, and he has found it. So this could be the where we can win the scenario. So we've closed the other locations, so that we're no longer have to deal with those. I've got my longsword. I can discard it to add a bunch of dice. And then Miyako has both a blessing, which can be adds 1 die to the check. By the way, 1 die, it's looking at the kind of base die that you're using. So in this case, Oric's base die is his strength for his melee check. And so if she uses the blessing, it'll add a d10.
Just to go back real quick on the longsword.
Yeah.
I noticed it said if you're not proficient with the longsword, it increases the difficulty of the check.
Yeah, that's a tricky thing that some people run into, is that obviously Oric's proficient in the longsword. The first 2 characters that you're given when you start the game are Mariciel and Kira. Neither of them are proficient in weapons. Kira can level up to being proficient in weapons, but that's kind of like how the game expresses you being good at using stuff. So in this case, for a longsword, it becomes harder if somebody that's not skilled uses it. So the check will go up. So if he didn't have this proficiency, the combat check would go from a 14 to a 19, making it harder. And similarly with most armor, it has a kind of a berry ability that's only available if you're proficient with it. That's also very powerful. So yeah, and she's going to use her Bardic Performance to continue helping, and so recharge a card.
So knowing this is the last location, you want to purposely go all out.
Exactly. So this is a case where, if I roll this right, then this will end the scenario. It's not certain by any means, because it's 5 dice plus 5. So minimally, I would hit a 10. I probably will hit it, but I could still fail it. And actually, I almost failed it. So, I won the scenario, and Sandpoint Devil is defeated. And Elsiari Gandethus, for those of you that have played the game, he has a funny interaction with the Sandpoint Devil if you have him as an ally. So he has him kind of captured as a weird pet. And both Oric and Miyako are characters that you'll run into as NPCs later in the game.
Yeah.
This would have been really embarrassing if I had failed this.
So I noticed you obtained some gold for winning and
Yes.
for killing monsters and defeating Banes. What can I do with that gold?
So with gold, that's how you can purchase new adventure packs. You can purchase new characters. You can also purchase treasure chests.
Nice. And what can we get in these treasure chests?
All right. So treasure chests are. Yeah. So we've gotten preset with 10 treasure chests, so that's cool. Thank you. Treasure chests mostly have cards, but they also have dice skins, which are pretty cool. And each card has a different deck, a different set level, a tier level, and a different a rarity. That kind of tells you how plentiful those things are in the economy of treasure chests, and also what level you can acquire those things. So you can look at each one, or you can tap in the middle to reveal them all. Yay! So yeah, in this case we have 2 cards that are available in Deck B, so those things will be available right away. And 1 card that's available in Deck 1 and 1 that's available in Deck 2. So those things are, those cards don't go directly to your characters. Those cards are now available in your vault to be found by any party. And so if you had 5 or 6 different parties, they could each have one of these cards with them if they happen to find them in their adventuring. Let's open another one. We may or may not find dice.
Oh, I see we have a
So we have
Different rarities here.
Yeah, so we have this one's uncommon. So this was one that you'll find kind of more readily. A lot of these aren't really less powerful per se. It's just situationally. Let's see. So the other ones we have, that's another uncommon. We have this locksmith leather. So that is a rare card. So that one helps you with disable checks. And we have an epic. Wait a minute, that's not supposed to be in there. So this is a internal build. So we actually happen to have one of our legendary rewards within our treasure chest. So that's not the best, but that's but the idea is that let's see. Here we go. Here's a better one. So so this one's an epic. So this one has some additional bells and whistles that make it more interesting or a little bit more powerful in ways. So a lot of that, a lot of this is determined by as I'm going through and designing these things. I'm working with Paizo and Loan Shark to determine like what these powers actually do and what their what their rarities and difficulties are. So so yeah. I'll open the rest. There you go. Again, with the exception of something like this, which is unique to our game, a lot of these you'll find in character decks that are available for purchase, the physical game. But these that are in the epic, rare, and legendary category are all specifically made for the digital game only.
Okay, great. So that concludes our tutorial portion of the game. We're now going to open up to the Q&A portion. So if you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and ask away in chat. I have a pre-list that I've gotten from the community on the forums. So if you have any questions or suggestions or want to, report some issues that you find in the game, please go to our forums at forums.obsidian.net, and then you can go to Pathfinder Adventures and report on there, or you can even converse with other players in the community. Our community is very welcoming and friendly, and if you have any questions, they're very nice and they'll help answer your questions as well as when I'm on the forums as well, trying to reach out to everybody. So we have a couple questions.
Switch to 50-50.
Yes. So I have a couple questions. Let's see. Bouquet of Truth asks, so he's been hoarding a lot of chests in anticipation of later adventure decks coming out and new cards being introduced. Are we planning to introduce a significant number of new cards as future adventure decks come out, or has the bulk already been released?
The bulk has been released. There are certainly a number that we are working on and getting those things out. In terms of hoarding, it's kind of up to you. I don't know that there's specifically an advantage to it at this point. My preference is actually just to get enough gold, buy a chest, and then just keep that going as I'm playing through the game. So you're welcome to hoard it, but there are more coming. It's just there's not going to be necessarily an infusion of 40 cards at once or anything like that. It'll come in smaller chunks.
Okay. And then I have a few questions from Hannibal PJV.
Yes.
Who's very helpful on the community and the forums.
By the way, we got some dice.
Oh well, we're gonna open up those dice before we continue.
Let's do that right now. Yes.
Oh. So in treasure chests, you can obtain dice skins, which you can apply to a character. And in game, so instead of those normal blue dice, you can have these awesome sun gold dice as you play.
Yeah.
So back to Hannibal's questions. Any news about multi or cross-platform support?
So that's something that some of our programmers and our producer Ryan Roszinski are very interested in getting, as well as many of others, but are interested in pushing forward. So. I can't tell you exactly when, but it's something that we're looking at prioritizing in the not too distant future. So We have a way to do it. There was a way that we could do it before, but there were just some kind of technical things that made it so that we decided to go with only Game Center or only Google Play for a bit. So there's another way for us to go, but we are in the process of working on it.
Okay, and another question from Hannibal. One of the most interesting features to Quest Mode is the custom scenarios. Can you reveal anything about how they are doing at this moment?
Yeah, so there's a whole lot of revisions coming to Quest Mode soon, and it won't necessarily be ready for the Deck 4 release, for the Fortress of the Stone Giants release. However, you will start to see more kind of customized scenarios, more handcrafted scenarios, and you'll start to see kind of the direction that we're heading in this. So something that I'm very excited about is we're making changes to leveling up, so that each character has almost their own kind of different cards they get as they progress through the experience table. And so that's something that I've been playing around with and working on lately. Also, so when we do a Quest Mode update, which shouldn't be too far off, you'll start to see a lot more cool stuff added to it.
And then last question from Hannibal. So how do you choose and/or develop treasure chest cards?
Yeah, so I kind of alluded to this earlier. So treasure chest cards is something where a lot of what I'm doing is I'm tracking like how many cards of each rarity do I have per deck, and ultimately I want to have some kind of an even amount. But I'm looking for as I'm developing those, I'm like, where am I kind of lacking? And I have a big table that kind of tells me like how many arcane spells I have, how many blessings I have for each rarity, for each thing. And I'm ultimately trying to see where I can fill in the gaps. So I'll take pretty much a set, and then I'll say, okay, what kind of cards am I going to be developing next? And I kind of do these in batches so that they're so that when I throw these all at Loan Shark and Paizo, who developed the original physical game, they have a manageable amount to get through. So if I send them like 100 or so cards, it's going to be a bit trickier. But if I send them in smaller batches, then we can get through a bunch. And so a lot of what I'm doing is figuring out what type, and then I'll dive. A lot of times, frankly, I'll just dive into the art and the resources of the Pathfinder role-playing game books, and I'll say like, okay, where can I find a bunch of allies? And I'll look inside the like Inner Sea NPC Codex, and I'll find a bunch of like really cool looking allies that have kind of interesting things I can play with. So one of the things that will be coming up that we're in the middle of making is the Bleachling Lunatic. And so when you see his art, he has like he's this like really kind of white looking gnome guy that looks crazy, and he's got like cool like alchemical bombs all strapped to him, and the way his powers work is something where that I've developed alongside with Loan Shark and Paizo, which is he can essentially add more dice to add fire damage to checks if if he takes a card with an alchemical trait and just discards it or banishes it. And it can do a lot of damage, but it can also do damage to you. So I try and like keep the flavor of what's going on, as well as making sure that there are things that we can mostly already do with the engine. If I try to model cards based on things that would be coming in, like Skull and Shackle or something else later, that would be a little bit harder. So usually I'm trying to just leverage the powers that we already have in the Rise of the Runelords set. So yeah, it's a combination of just looking through those books. A lot of times I'm pouring through, the spells in a specific Pathfinder book and saying, okay, what fits? What can I actually do that kind of expresses this well? A lot of times what we're doing new art for stuff, and that if there isn't art that already exists. But yeah, I mean, like RPG nerd's dream is to go through, like, as a job, go through your all these books and like try and figure out how to make these into cards.
No, that's super awesome.
Yeah.
So Longshot11 in chat is asking when will we have a way to respec characters if you felt like the build you currently made wasn't one you were enjoying so much?
So that's one of the features that we have on the list of things that we'd like to do. We have ways that we would like to do it. It's obviously right now we're prioritizing getting some of those decks out that people have been looking for a while. So that might not be coming in the next couple of updates, but it's something that we are definitely interested in doing.
And then the next question from Razgon. Well, it's been brought up by a bunch of people, but any news on the PC platform? Do we plan on releasing it for PC?
We absolutely do plan on releasing it on PC. It's as far as the timing of it is concerned, we're evaluating that right now. So I think, certainly we're going to want to get deck 4 and deck 5 out first before that, and beyond that we'll see, because PC is something we're very interested in.
And then, so perusing on the forums, there's some questions that come up, maybe especially for new players, since we have a new influx of new players.
Yeah.
Do you need to purchase the adventure decks for quest mode?
No, not right now, and it's not something that we currently plan to make as a requirement. But it's a right now quest mode is, if you grind your way through your levels to get up to those spots, you'll run into some of those cards that you'll find in the adventure decks. It's much faster to get through to gain power in story mode, and there are a number of cards that we don't from certain decks that we don't put into quest mode, and most of the quest mode cards are all kind of like rebalanced so that they appear in decks that are more befitting their power, less, and not so much what's happening in the story. So, for instance, there's a card in deck 3 that's Yap the Pixie, which is a fairly low power card that we throw down to, I think it's deck B or deck 1 in quest mode, but it's something that you would find in deck 3 in story mode.
And then quickly in chat, will there be plans for multiplayer?
We do plan to support multiplayer. I can't say anything more about what that's going to be, but it'll be kind of modeled a little bit on how we do pass and play. Obviously, we'd be upgrading that as we get to that point.
And then, if we have a PC version release, will people be able to transfer their data from either their mobile devices to over the PC version?
I think that's our plan. I can't promise that just yet, but that's ideally what we would like to do.
And then also, some people are concerning about RNG and feel like the game is rigged for them to lose because they have a bad streak. We don't do anything in any way to mess with RNG.
Yeah, we don't put our finger on the scales in any way. We actually have one of our QA here that typically rolls low all the time, named David Lockwood, and so whenever we run into a bad streak ourselves, we call it the Lockwood effect. So. Feel free to use that as you like, but you run into those bad streaks. A lot of the game, though, is the strategy of mitigating failure. So it's a lot of like, all right, so how can I make sure I definitely pass this check? Usually there's a way to collect dice in such a way that the chances are that even if you roll less than average, that you can make a check work. So yeah. RNG is always going to be a thing when you're rolling dice, but it's this game is all built on the choices that you make to mitigate whether you're successful or not.
All right. Well, that's all the questions I have for now. Again, if anyone has any more questions, feel free to put it in chat right now, as we have a few minutes left of the stream. Again, if you are active in chat, you'll have a chance to win the Obsidian Golem card that was a promotion card at, what was it?
At the Gen Con.
At Gen Con. So
Yeah.
you'll have a chance to win a physical copy of the card and the digital code as well.
Yeah, the Goblin Golem of Obsidian is something near and dear to my heart. That's something that we developed and we did all the art for, and with the assistance of Lone Shark and Paizo, and that's a card that you can actually play in the physical game. So yeah, he's
One lucky winner.
yeah, he's a guy who will just run into both danger and good things and just blow it up.
Let's see. How are we doing with the UI? Or do we have someone? Twin Plin. Any UI fixes?
Yeah, we've been burning through a lot of UI bug fixes definitely lately. We are including in the next update the option for those of you that are playing on large phones to switch back to tablet style interface if you like. Also, we're adding functionality to make the phone interface better. And the UI is just a constant kind of evolution that we're always working on, because every time you add new powers to the game, there's often new things you need to add to the interface. And also, there are always ways that we can make things better. So one of the things that we're adding in the next update too is an ability to activate location powers without actually opening up the location panel. That's something that will allow you to kind of, if you know locations, if you know what's going on, then you can quickly get through those sections of the game.
Okay, great. Hey, Mikey, how will we be resolving the contest in chat right now? There it is, Xenosin. Congratulations, you won the Obsidian Golem card.
Woo, nice.
Well, once again, thank you everybody for joining us for our Q&A chat live stream. We will definitely be doing more of these in the future. We don't have a schedule set yet, but so be on the lookout. Follow us on Twitter at Obsidian, and you can find out when what news we have for all our games here at the company, or when streams are happening.
Yeah. Also, if I'm also on Twitter at Nathan_J_Davis, and if you just want to put in something and put hashtag Pathfinder Adventures, I keep track of that hashtag pretty regularly. So if you want to reach out to me in any way or ask me any questions more directly, if you go on Twitter and either hit me up or go to our forums, I'm usually fairly active there, as well as a number of our members of the team.
So if you have any more questions we didn't address today, or any suggestions or any feedback for the game at all, please go to our forums at forums.obsidian.net. You'll have to make an account, and feel free to just go all out, and we'll do our best to make sure we read everything. And if you have any questions, it will either answer it, or the community will help and answer it for you. So today ends our first stream, but we do have a second stream later at 7 p.m. with Mike Lee Dowling, our social media manager, for Obsidian Plays Multiplayer Wednesdays. We'll be playing You Don't Know Jack Party. So you'll be able to play with us as you're watching our stream. So stick around at 7 o'clock, and thank you all for joining us.